I was asked to speak about the common case definition, and after hearing all the details about background and biologicals, I would like to speak about the cases we are talking and how can we define them. We have 146, we had 146, I must say, when I did those slides, in addition to the 3 PML cases from the clinical trials. And at that time, I'd like to remind you that one of those cases was only more or less prospective diagnosed. The other MS cases, which was a woman who was retrospectively diagnosed, and the CD cases was also retrospectively diagnosed. And that, from that point of view, we were starting of thinking how actually to classify those cases. We had the first case in July 2008, a case from Sweden, and then we had continuous increase of cases, which led the EU to introduce an Article 20 procedure to revisit the benefit risk. By that time, 29 cases. A year ago, we had, and due to this revision, we had the implementation about the risk cutoff at 24 months, where we saw an increase of PML cases after 24 months of treatment. And finally, we had in April the renewal of Tysabri in the EU, agreeing to a favorable benefit risk, including also some new aspects of risk minimization with regard to immunosuppressive treatment and the GC virology. This is a history of reporting we have seen, and you can see maybe not clinically significant, but you can see a change of reporting per month. And you have to look at, of course, due to the ongoing exposure of patients, increasing number of exposure for longer duration, we have an increase of reporting, which is not surprisingly. This is a cumulative graph, and we hopefully not continue this in extrapolation. But as you can see, the numbers are increasing not only over time, but also per month. This is a time when we actually started more specifically thinking about a case definition and why should we apply this. And that was during the renewal procedure. At that time, we had a thorough look at the PML cases, of course, and the question was whether we are looking at all cases or whether we are looking only at those clinically, scientifically confirmed. And that's how it came that we were thinking about a more broader case definition. At that time, and we still agree on that, we have a sort of 3 pillars to agree on a confirmed case definition, which is the serology being positive in this, the PCR being positive in CSF, the clinical symptoms being specifically for PML, and the MRI being also specific for PML. But of course, we have to look at all cases. We have been reported at that time, it was about 160 cases ever been suspected. So this led us to the proposal that we have to look in the sort of probability level when we can agree on the PML case or not, because we are aware, and we were aware of all those reports, that not for all suspected cases, the full information may be available despite the case are existing and continuing to exist. And from that point of view, first of all, we had according to the Brighton collaboration, leveling out the case definition to level 1 to 5, depending on the diagnostic certainty. We have the highest diagnostic certainty, of course, with the agreed pillars being the clinical symptoms, and of course being positive or confirmed immunohistological brain biopsy with JC virus. And the other possibility to have a high level of diagnostic certainty would be the trilogy of results, being the clinical symptoms, the characteristic finding in the MRI, and the positive PCR and JCV in the CSF. And I think that is agreed that I think for those cases we are clear they are truly confirmed cases of PML. But what do we do if one of those features are missing or unconclusive? We also have to judge from regulatory point of view where to point out those cases in our assessment for risk. I'll try to move on. Can you help me with change? Oh, thank you. So we had the second level of diagnostic certainty reduced to the information that we do have clinical symptoms consistent with PML, as mentioned, and we do have the JCV DNA positive in the CFF confirmed by a validated lab. And this is reflecting for some of the cases where the MRI scan is either inconclusive or not reproducible. And those cases are also seen from regular point of view as a high level or high suspect of PML. And then the third level, which is more diverse, and we have split them in 3 sections, depending on the availability of information. And the first would be that we have the clinical symptom, as mentioned, and we have a characteristic proved and by expert approved characteristic of PML. And for the PCR, for the JC virus, there may be information, but not validated or inconclusive in the results. For the second, would be the clinical symptoms are not clear or not reported in follow-up, but brain MRI scan is characteristic for PML, and the JC virus in CSF is also characteristic and positive for PML. And for the third possibility, we do have the clinical symptoms again, which are unclear or not reported. The MRI is not available or unspecific, but we do have positive PCR for JCV DNA in the CSF, and we have reports of the presence of iris following the suspension of Tysabri. So those are the level 3 diagnostic criteria. And then for the ones who are really uncertain or exclusive, we have a level 4, literally mentioning those cases where definite information is not available or lost to follow-up information is presented. And of course, not meeting criteria 1 to 3 and criteria 5. Criteria 5 is clearly those criteria which could be seen as exclusive PML in the due course of the investigation. And here it's sort of the negative of the 3 other levels, meaning that all criteria are exclusive, like neurological signs are leading to other alternative diagnosis, the absence of MRI features for PML, and the negative test for JCV in the CSF. We can also have a combination that clearly the neurological signs or the diagnostic is clearly for a different diagnosis for PML other than PML, or we have the characteristic features of PML not proven in a brain biopsy, which has been rarely done. This leads me to the conclusion, and where are we now with the reporting here? There are three milestones of assessment of the cases, and you can see that more or less the interesting part of the assessment for us are the pending cases where the diagnostic is going or the confirmation is ongoing. And you can see that for the suspected case of PML, which is mean in our terminology, that we do see them as a high level, either 2 or 3, to be confirmed. And those cases have reduced after we have looked into this. And as far as I can report that with the conversation and interaction with the marketing authorization holder, there's an approach to more thoroughly look in the different aspects of the cases, whether they're truly confirmed or possibly confirmed. And this is just to highlight at the end, we are not looking from the clinical or scientific point of view. We have to look from the regulatory point of view to assess the overall risk also in a sort of worst case scenario. Thank you for your attention.